Welcome to this edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts either through their industry insights and information or simply learning from them. This is the fourth part of the special series called the $35 trillion opportunity in the USA. To tell us more about this opportunity, that is the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the USA, let's go to the man who is watching this space as closely as possible to profit those who would want to profit from it. We are joined by David Walters, founder and CEO, Steam Powered Consulting, directly from the USA. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks, AJ. Pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Welcome. David, first of all, we have done already three series and three episodes of this series, and now this is the fourth one. So some people may be wondering why exactly we are doing this and what's the main purpose behind this. So just can you spell it out for our audience?
Okay. Well, let me step back a bit. I think you probably want to know what motivates me for this. So
Yes,
I think in the first episode we mentioned that I started my career in the Royal Navy. I was a submarine officer. I had a great job when I was the weapons engineer on HMS Opportune. We had a huge project. I took a boat into a 25-year-old submarine into refit. 2 years later, she came out as a brand new submarine. And we actually had a war game against Britain's latest and greatest nuclear attack submarine, 48-hour war game. And we lost the war only by one shot, which for a 28-year-old submarine versus a brand new nuclear submarine, I was very pleased. And it just shows that what you can do is when people know what they need to do and they put their mind to it, you can achieve great things. And the only reason I left the Royal Navy was because of the strain it was putting on my family. I had two very young children. I was living at a naval base that was about 200 miles away from where the submarine had been in refit. So every time I went home, my daughter, who was born at the end of the refit, would scream and not let me near her. And every time I left home to go back to the base, my son would cling onto my leg, and I literally had to shake him off my leg to be able to drive to the base. So I just felt that was putting too much strain on the family. So I left the Royal Navy, which I was disappointed. I was having a great time there, and I loved making things better. I was always good at trying to find the best way to do business. In this case, in the submarines. I joined the Canadian Navy. I think I mentioned that. We had a very different attitude between the British Navy and the Canadian Navy, so it turned out I wasn't a good fit there. So after that, I went into the nuclear power industry to work in the emergency management as an emergency management consultant. And again, I felt that I had, I was giving a lot of value because I was helping them create systems and improve systems that were for the good of a lot of people. A lot of people benefited. So it was became part of my DNA that I really became very good at helping people get the best out of the business or the process or the systems they had. And after 9/11, I was asked to head up a company to provide armed security inside nuclear power plants. First time it had ever been done in Canada. We were the only company in Canada that had that license. And we created a company that went from nothing to $8 million in revenue in about 18 months. So again, we had $1 million exit after 18 months, which was very, very commendable. And unfortunately, I made some mistakes in the structure of the business. So my business partner and I fell out after we'd exited that project. And my wife at the time, she also got cancer. So we figured it was time to go back to the UK. So I've always tried to put my family first, and I'm always a big advocate that people, family comes first, business is second. But when we returned to the UK, I got involved in a charity, and this was a charity that was doing work with military veterans, and we created a program for post-traumatic stress disorder that we actually had an 84% recovery rate. The people that came on our course were, after a 3-day program, were no longer having flashbacks and abreactions because of their military trauma. We had a Major General Robin Short, who was the head of the Army Medical Services, who recently retired from the military. He promoted us. We had presentations to the Defence Select Committee, and the government wouldn't touch it because it was, you know, it was not invented here. The government was in denial, and I always felt that was terribly unjust. You know, there were all these soldiers and sailors and airmen who'd put their life on their line for the country. They had, you know, PTSD is an injury. It's an injury to the mind.
Right.
But it should, you know, it should be treated just the same as a bullet wound or shrapnel or whatever else. But the government's they don't know what to do. They don't want to accept the liability, so they just brush it away. They deny they have a problem, and it really just struck me as being terribly unjust that these men who put their life on their line, and women, as you know, more and more ladies join the military, were not being treated by the government. They were not being treated fairly. They were just being abandoned. And although we had a huge success rate, the government wouldn't fund us. And after 3 years, this charity, you know, I was basically operating as a personal charity. We said, we can't do this. We can't carry on anymore. We're not helping these guys because we're not finishing the journey with them. We're not giving them all the support they need. So that was a pretty bitter time when we had to shut down that charity because there were so many people we knew we could have helped. After that, I went back into engineering in the corporate world. I got sent to America to run the division for the company I was with. And, you know, I got a lot of experience there on turning around underperforming units. So the unit that I took over initially had a net promoter score, an NPS of -25, which is really bad. So, you know, we had to work to improve that. And then similarly, I got moved to another group that had field service group had a very high non-conformance cost. They were running at 7% of sales, which, you know, on a $30 million product line, 7% of sales, we were wasting $2 million a year of profit just on our day-to-day business. And when the field service group was running at 10% margin, we were basically taking a huge liability but working for free. That it made no sense. But, you know, in 14 months, I was able to reduce the non-conformance cost by over 50%. So again, it just reinforced. I seem to have this natural desire, this natural ability to look at systems that are ineffective and help people improve them. So I got moved into the global excellence team for this multinational corporation. I was working quite happily there, and then. You know, I mean, I was having a great time with that company. Unfortunately, my wife's health didn't sort of go as well as it should have done. So we moved to Belize, where she was more comfortable. And then I was lucky that I could work remotely. But unfortunately, I had to make a pretty significant decision whether to keep her going in pain or allow her to be pain-free. So we moved back. I moved back from Belize on what would have been my 29th wedding anniversary as a new widower. So that again struck me as being a very painful time because for all the things we'd done to try and improve our health, we just could not get, you know, we could not get the treatment, or we could not get the turnaround. So again, it just struck me as being so unjust, you know. So I seem to have developed this nature that I just want to fight injustice, if you like. And what I see now is with the $35 trillion opportunity, 4.5 million companies where the business owner has put their life into their company are going to end up with zero value. That's $10 trillion of value that these people have created, which is going to go to zero unless they learn how to exit their business properly. And that just really triggers my sense of injustice, you know. So I made it my commitment to really want to reach out and help these business owners. You know, I've got the technical skill, I've clearly got the business skill from my experience in the corporate world, but it just struck me, you know, really as a gut punch. In fact, you know, I'll be very blunt, it pissed me off that when I see all these people who've put so much of themselves into their business, but are facing a zero value exit, that just struck me as being so incredibly unjust. It motivated me to set up the program that we're doing now and create, you know, what we've called Mission 895 to try and help 895 business owners learn how to maximize the value of their business and get a high value and get the high value exit that they actually deserve. So that's what, that's really what motivates me. That's what's driving me, and that's my desire now. And this is why we created the program. So it's become my passion. It fills both my sense of injustice and also my sort of innate skill as a process optimization person. So by helping these business owners, if I can't see that I can give a business owner a roadmap to get at least $150,000 of additional profit, I won't work with them, because I'm not giving them the 10x value. I always want to give anybody I work with, any of my clients, I want to give them at least, as a minimum, 10 times the value of what my services cost. So if I can't see a way of giving a business owner at least $150,000 of extra profit, I'm not going to work with them, because I'm not giving them all that I can. I'm not giving them all the value that I'd like to give them. So I created the 8-week program. Initially, I started as one-on-one consulting, but I realized that with that, there's no way I was going to reach all the businesses I want to reach to help them. So I recreated the program as a group coaching program, which is now what we're offering, which is what I'm talking about. And the way the program works is really to help the business owner understand where they are. Where are they on their roadmap? What is the reality that they're facing? And the reality is they often don't even, they have an idea what their business may be worth, but they have absolutely no real understanding. So the first thing we do is give them an estimate as to what their business is worth, or what their business would be valued at today without any additional work. We then show them the potential, what they could potentially get if they went through the value maximization process. We then give them the step-by-step process. We show them all of the steps they need to do to get to that high value exit. We teach them, and we've mentioned this before, the predictable growth engine. We teach them what they need to do to implement this predictable growth engine, that they can just use a system to double their revenue, to increase the revenue, increase their spare cash flow, so they can invest in these upgrades to improve the value of the business. We teach them how to make sure they don't have any bottlenecks which will prevent growth by installing the business operating system. And then when they've got all that, we then show them they've got they've got 4 options. 3 of them are exit options. 1 of them is not to exit. So the first exit option is to do nothing and go down that death spiral that we talked about and get 0 value. Nobody would consciously make that option. It makes no sense. Even if they just exited for an SD evaluation, they at least get something. To just let the business value tend to 0, nobody wins in that scenario. Now, what we do find in some cases is when people have got their business to be scalable, when they have implemented the predictable growth engine, they've implemented the business operating system, the business runs much more efficiently. It runs much more smooth. They say, actually, I'm really enjoying the business now. I don't want to exit. I've fallen in love with my business again, because all those things that were irritating me and all those things that were frustrating me are now no longer here. So I want to stay with my business. I want to keep working in the business. I know my opportunity for exit, but actually I don't want to go for exit just at this moment in time. And that's fine, because we've given them value. We've shown them how to double the revenue of the business and how to manage the business in a much less stressful manner. The third option is, if you remember when we did the analysis, how we can 10x the value, that's the third option. So to just focus on internal optimization, but in doing that, they can achieve a 10x increase in their business value, and that's when they may choose to exit. Or the fourth option, the final option for the exit, the third exit, would be to go for that high value vertical roll up when they're looking at getting over $10 million of revenue, over $2 million of EBITDA, and that's when they're positioned for a P&E or a family office buyout. But those are the options. So now the business owner knows where they're starting from. They know what the potential is, whether it's a scalable exit, an internal optimization exit, or a full roll-up. They've got the options. They can make a decision as to what they want to do, and they have the roadmap how to do it. So this is what we give people. So I can't promise that a business owner is going to sell his business for 10 times more than when he started. It's up to the business owner to do the work. But what I can promise is that if they go through the program, they will have absolute clarity and absolute confidence that they know where they are today, what their potential is, and exactly what they need to do to get there. So that's the program, and that's what we do to really give them that transformation from being, I know I'm going to have to leave, I know I'm going to have to exit, I need to retire. My wife's saying, what about a retirement? Can you fund our future? Can you provide for the children? Are you going to leave a legacy? All of these things that business owners, as they come to the end of their career, start to think about and worry about. All of that anxiety, all of that concern goes away because they have a very clear roadmap. This is what I'm worth today. This is what I can be worth in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, whatever their plan is. And this is how I get there. It's a proven process. And I know if I follow the plan, I will get a high value exit. So we transform the business owner from one of anxiety and concern to one of confidence and optimism. And I think at the end of your business life, that's a nice way to finish. And that's what motivates me to help the business owners, really get the value from that. And as I say, I will not work with anybody that if I can't show them I can give them $150,000 of increased profit, I won't work with them because I'm not able to give them as much value as I would like to. By the same token, I always say, I'm looking to at least give them 10x, 10 times the value. So that's why the coaching program is a $15,000 program, as I said. But it's designed to really give the business owner at least a 10x, if not a 20x increase in value, if that's what they choose to do. So that's what's firing me up. That's my motivation to really help, at least 895 business owners maximize the value of their company, so that value doesn't just get lost. It stays in society. It helps other businesses. And it really does good for people. So that's my drive, that's my vision, and that's what I want to do. So I hope that gives you an understanding of what fires me up and why I'm so passionate about this.
Yes, David, I fully understand it. I have a huge respect. I had a huge respect for you earlier. Now it has, I don't know how to put it, but I can understand your pain. I can also understand the mission, and I can also understand your feeling, because you have always been fighting for others, and this is another way of giving back to the people you have worked with, giving back to the society, to businesses. And there cannot be anything more noble and more inspiring than this particular story. And from my part, I'm honored, I'm myself inspired to be a part of this whole process, whole thing that we are doing. Now, asking one more question about this, David, can you tell us more about this program, what it is about, how people can, join into it? What are the details?
Okay, so what we would look at is if a business was interested in the program. Not every business is eligible. Obviously, I want to make sure that I can give them the real value that they deserve. So we would do a discovery call with the client, and we would say, your business really is ideally suited. So they must be doing at least $1 million a year in revenue for me to be able to help them turn around and change course. We need to make sure that the business owner is truly committed, because, as I say, I cannot guarantee that the business owner will get the high value exit. That's up to them. But I can promise that by the end of the program, they know exactly what they need to do to get there, and they have a very clear roadmap. So they're much more confident in the future and how they do it. And then obviously, there's the fee, and we charge that because, if somebody is paying $200 for a program, they're not committed. If somebody pays, even $500, and I'm asking a business owner who's a very busy person to give me 8 weeks, at least 2 hours a week, a minimum of 2 hours a week for 8 weeks. So they need to have some skin in the game. That's why we have the price point where it is. But obviously within that, we want as many people as possible to benefit from the program. So this is where we come in. And actually, I think you from what you and I were discussing earlier, you want to help businesses in this way. So now might be a good time to talk about what you can do as well.
Right, right. So, can you tell us how exactly people can participate, and if there is a better ways or a more comfortable way to join the program?
Okay. Well, if they wanted to come to me, obviously my email is at the end of the presentation. They can just email me. We can set that discovery call up. And as I say, the program fee is $15,000 or $14,997. But as we've discussed, you're also passionate about this. You're motivated to help business owners as well, especially the people who are listening to your podcast. So, from our discussion, you're very generously going to be sponsoring 3 people. So,
Yeah.
you are going to give a $5,000 sponsorship to the first 3 people who apply to you. So, in this case, they would need to apply to you directly, because you are the one who is going to make sure that they meet the criteria. We don't want to sponsor somebody that wouldn't then get through into the program. So they would have to contact you directly. But from our discussions, the first 3 people who would like to go through the Value Maximizer program, if they connect you and you feel that they're a good fit, you are going to pay the first $5,000 of their course fees to allow them to join the program. So I mean, that's a hugely generous sponsorship offer on your part, and I think it's just it's a great demonstration of how the KAJ Masterclass really is committed to helping business owners and helping people do the absolute get the absolute best out of their life, and that helps me help them as well. So I'm very, very grateful and very, very pleased at the fact that you've made that generous offer. And I would encourage anybody that listens to this, don't waste time. Contact AJ, apply for the sponsorship, and if it's a good fit for you, if we think you would get the benefit, I'd be happy to get you loaded on a program and get that discovery call up and running.
Thank you, David. Thank you for this, and I would be very honored to help in my way through whatever ways I can, and especially with addition of this huge encouragement from your side, I would be happy to bring this particular program to the Indian audience. Now, going on to the topic of today's discussion, Texas Engineering and Technology Network, you have been putting a lot of emphasis on Texas. Maybe one of the reasons is you are yourself based in the Texas area, but for the larger people who would have interest in spending money out in the USA and be a part of this $35 trillion opportunity, why Texas?
Okay, why Texas? Well, it's a great place. I mean, it's just Texas. What else can I say? I should have actually worn my cowboy hat. In future, I'll make sure I bring my cowboy hat. But no, there's a real frontier optimism in Texas. I've got a few slides with some details, but just that the attitude, the character, the people here are still very very open, very friendly. And it's that whole frontier mindset. We're out here building something, and that attitude has permeated through the whole of Texas. I mean, Texas is a huge state. When you overlay Texas on the map of Europe, it covers something like 2/3 of the land area of Europe. It's a huge state, and it's actually the Texas economy is the 9th largest economy on the planet. So if you compare Texas to all the other countries in the world, Texas is coming in. These were 2019 figures, I think, maybe 2020. But the Texas economy is just under $2 trillion a year, which positions it at number 9 in the global economy. And since then, there's a huge influx of technology, a huge influx of new startups. Texas is a very, very business-friendly state. The governor is really pushing to make it business-friendly. There we go. Thank you. Yeah. So just to give you an idea, 28.7 million people. That's a country size in its own right. Gross domestic product, gross state product, almost $2 billion. Now, as I say, these are 2019 figures, so I'm pretty sure it's over $2 billion now. Medium household income is $62,000. So it's not the highest, but it's certainly people are not living on the poverty line. You know, it's a nice middle of the road wage. Cost of doing business, 10% less than the national average. So Texas is very pro-business. You know, the Texas government really want to bring businesses in here. College attainment, 29.6. That's low, but it's a lot of it is because we get a lot of migrant workers and we get a lot of people that have never had the opportunity to go to college. But there's also, you know, there are several different universities here. There's a lot of influx of technology. And because we've got so much space, it's very easy to absorb all these extra people coming in. I mean, SpaceX built their rocket fabrication facility in Waco. They've built their launch facility down in Brownsville. You've got a lot of the tech companies, many tech companies are now leaving California and moving into Texas to make Texas. Austin is becoming, you know, probably will be soon, the tech capital of the US. So there's this huge influx of technology and these centers of, you know, high tech, SpaceX, biomed is very big, and also additive manufacturing. There's huge amount of leading edge technology. Migration, as I said, 200,000 people in 2018. I think it's over 300, maybe 350,000 people a year migrating into Texas, bringing in this technology, bringing in the skill sets that we need for Texas to become soon the economic powerhouse of the US. Very low unemployment rate, 3.5%, AAA bond rating, and you know, Governor Greg Abbott's very popular. He's probably in line to be re-elected. So you've got stability of government. So all of these things are really good indicators for especially somebody, an overseas national who wants to invest in the US. Texas is a great place because it's stable, and they know that they're going to get fair and good treatment, and the opportunities for success are absolutely huge. Okay. Right. The other things, just to look at it. I mean, this is off one of the Texas websites. It's the #1 state for corporate expansion location. I think we have 10% of the Fortune 100 headquarters now in Texas. It's got the fastest growing state economy. So of all the states, this is 2022 figures, I think, or 2020. It's the fastest growing economy on a state by state basis in the US. According to the Chief Executive magazine, it's considered the #1 best state for businesses. It's considered to be the #1 best state to start a new business. But also, once you've got your business, you've got to get your products. If you're into manufacturing, if you're into products, you need to get that business, to get those products out. Texas is also the #1 state for exports, okay? And it's the #1 state for growth. As I said, Texas is a huge landmass. There is massive opportunity for growth. The cost of putting up facilities and factories is low compared to a lot of the states where the land pressure is much higher. So it's got everything going for it, for an investor who wanted to either buy an existing business and optimize it and then do a roll-up, or for somebody who wants to come in and, you know, start a completely greenfield business. Texas has got a huge amount of support for those sort of projects. These are the top 6 areas where Texas excels. So corporate services. Now, again, for an Indian investor, we spoke about labor arbitrage in one of the previous episodes. Okay. Yes, this would be so corporate services and information technology would be 2 really sweet spots for Indian investors to set up a Texas business and then optimize that business and benefit from labor arbitrage. So those would be huge opportunities. Biotech and life sciences, as I said, most of the universities have, you know, very successful biotech research, and I think the medical center in Houston is the biggest one in the country with several leading national hospitals there. Advanced manufacturing, all over Houston, all over Texas, there are companies looking at 3D printing, advanced manufacturing techniques. There's a push by the US government to repatriate manufacturing back to the US, and 3D printing and AM is where we're really driving to bring that manufacturing back to the US. And then aerospace, aviation, defense. Obviously, Texas is always been big in all of those. And finally, energy. You know, Houston is the energy capital of the world. It's renowned for that. The Texas oil boom is what made us who we are, and that's still a very big play. I mean, there are issues with with what's going on politically, but energy is still the bedrock of of Texas, and that fires up all of these other industries. So the website there I put on the bottom, businessintexas.com. Plenty of information for anybody interested in coming to Texas, and huge opportunity for a business to either do a roll up and really optimize and maximize value, or to be a greenfield startup and to really come in and benefit from this booming economy. And then the final thing is, if people are going to be moving to Texas, whether you're coming from India or from another state, California, New York, wherever, we're getting a lot of migration into Texas. The cost of living in Texas is 7% lower than the rest of the US. The average looking at the average in the US, where overall is 93.9 compared to the US. Cost of groceries is about the same, 93%. Cost of healthcare, as I said, we have the huge medical complexes. Cost of housing, 84%. That's a lot of. Florida is another hot state, another hot economy. Again, the governor there is very, very pro-business. He's very, very supportive of the business community. But the problem Florida's got is it's a much smaller state. It's surrounded by water. And so the cost of housing and the cost of moving to Florida is much, much higher. I think somebody was telling me the cost of condos and apartments in Florida is almost getting to New York levels now, because there's so much inward migration. So, if you're starting a business and you want to bring in employees, bring them to a place where their money goes farther. They're happy with that. And then, utilities, about the same as the rest of the country. Transportation's a bit higher. I saw an interesting picture the other day. If somebody's in Houston says, "Oh, you're just the other side of town," that's a 2-hour drive. That's the downside. I actually saw this picture that said they showed a map of Houston and said, if anybody says, "Oh, you're just the other side of town," don't expect to see them for half a day, because if you overlay the state of Connecticut, it actually fits inside Greater Houston. So that's just to give you an idea of the scale. If I said to you, "Hey, I'm going to have to cross the state of Connecticut," that's not a 20-minute journey. If I say I've got to cross the city of Houston, that's a 2-hour drive. So that's the one thing. Texas is a big place. That a lot of that's in our advantage, but it does mean the cost of transportation is a bit higher. So that's really all I had to say on Texas. But it's a hot economy. There's a huge amount going on, and for any investor, anybody interested in helping existing business owners maximize the value of their business, buying businesses to do a roll-up to create a consortium that you can really leverage, getting into Texas is the way to do it. And I'm more than happy. If anybody's got any questions about how to set up in Texas, I'm more than happy to connect them to my network. In fact, I'm running a network on LinkedIn called the Texas Engineering and Technology Network. And the whole aim of that is to help Texas-based businesses maximize their business opportunity, maximize their profits and their scalability, with an eye to being very attractive to foreign investors that want to come in and participate in this booming economy.
Right. So, David, you talk about engineering and technology. Why engineering and technology as the go-to sectors?
I think because of the growth potential. Certainly, if you look at what's going on in the world, old manufacturing. I mean, it's still going on, but especially with additive manufacturing, I'm so excited about what can happen to our society. And if you had, again, thinking about the Indian investor, if you had somebody coming in to Texas, investing in a manufacturing company. I mean, I heard recently they're now building 3D printing machines that are integrated with CNC machines, so you can actually print the substrate or print the product and mill it to final fit, all on one platform. And another guy I'm talking to who's very close to a lot of the leading edge R&D was saying that in one of the research labs, they're actually looking at 3D printing a drone that will be able to actually fly off the print bed.
3D printing of a drone?
that will then, you don't need to pick it up. It will be done. One of the companies I'm working with actually has what we call exotic filament. So they now have filament where you can print the electronic circuit board directly onto the 3D print. So you don't need to put in extra circuits. It's all printed, it's all integrated. There's no risk of a circuit board vibrating free. There's no risk of it delaminating. So now when you bring when you bring plastic and metal and electronics all into a single print environment, you can print whatever you want. As I say, there's a project, I don't know, I probably need to loop back and see where it's going. But the intent of the project is to see if they can print a drone and have it fly straight off the print bed. Now, if they can do that, that's huge. I mean, we're getting, when you can do that, you're almost getting to the Star Trek. If you remember the old Star Trek, when Captain Picard would go to the machine and said, "Tea, Earl Grey, hot," and a cup of tea would appear in front of him. 3D printing, additive manufacturing is taking us on that journey. So you think about hazardous environments, or you think about remote locations. If you've got sensitive equipment, you wouldn't need to carry all the spares. You would just need to have a 3D printer with the right material. Say, oh, that piece broke, we'll print up a replacement. And you can just do that time and time again. So that's the whole, that's really what excites me about what's going on, but especially Texas, because we have the resources, we have the space, we have the infrastructure, and manufacturing is going to be a huge boom industry, which is why I'm really focusing on engineering. I mean, I'm an engineer by training. One of the other things, again, probably going back to my sense of injustice, when you look at British engineering, the great Scottish engineers, Brunel and Stevenson and Watt and all those people that created the Industrial Revolution, but they never really benefited from it. And we cite Tesla, Nikola Tesla. He was, right, I would argue, possibly the world's greatest technical genius, maybe the world's greatest ever engineer, but he died in poverty.
Right. Right.
You look
That's a sad story.
And it's tragic. And I say that's really what it gets my sense of injustice fired up, that all these engineers working so hard never get the money they deserve because they either don't have the skills, or they don't know how to deal with the finance people, or they've left themselves vulnerable contractually, whatever it is. And it just piques my sense of injustice, which is why I want to help engineering companies get the value that they really deserve for doing what they're doing well.
I get it, David. I fully get it. Now, talking about about the value chain, owning the value chain in all this, can you tell us about that?
Sure. So now this would be a more advanced technique. So if you remember, we talked about the optimizing the business, maximizing the business value. Right. The final stage, and as I showed last week, we can get to 10x value purely by internal optimization. But to get beyond that, you then need to be taking the bigger decisions. This is where you're looking at M&A growth. And so if you had the ability to help a business grow and succeed, there are two places where you would want to help them. Firstly, your customers. If you can help a customer become more successful, they're going to buy more of your product, okay? Which means your business is going to grow and succeed. So looking at the value chain, so one option we'd say, okay, that customer has got, they've got a good product, but they're not optimizing it. So one option would be to buy the customer, optimize them, so that increases their growth, that increases their requirement to buy your core product or service, which means you've now got two profit centers. You've got the profit that this customer's making because you can help them sell more, and you've got more profit in your core business because they're buying more of your supporting product. Looking in the other direction, if you have a supplier, and there's two reasons you would probably want to buy your supplier. Firstly, if you think they're vulnerable. So if they're a critical supplier, and one of the things we always recommend, and one of the things we analyze, is never ever get more than 40% concentration in any product or sector, and ideally never have more than 10% revenue from any single client. Because if you're over concentrated and then that sector stumbles, you're in trouble. So maximum 40% concentration in any product or niche, and maximum of 10% revenue from any single client source. Otherwise, you bring in vulnerability. And when the business is assessed, that vulnerability will take off from the potential value. So if you have a supplier who you think, okay, they're good, they're a critical supplier for me, but I don't like the way they've been managed, or that they're a risk for me, buy your supplier. Again, it does two things. Now it creates another profit center for you, but you can then be sure that that supplier is not going to trip over and put you into trouble, because you then lose a critical supplier. So looking at your value chain, look at the suppliers and look at your customers and see where it makes sense. So help your customers be more successful because they're going to buy more from you, and help your suppliers be more efficient, because then that it gives, potentially protects your supply chain, but also gives you more value in your consortium. So that's what we talk about, optimizing
Right.
the value chain.
Right. You are also very positive about, SaaS, software as a service industry, so sector. So can you tell us about why you are so positive, and what exactly you want others to see in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to really get to the sort of nosebleed valuations, let's look at our engineering. Remember the engineering company we talked about, $2 million of revenue, 15% margin. So they're doing $300,000 a year. Currently, as I said last week, with the multiplier was 12.6. That gives them $3.7 million of value. And we showed how, going through the various optimization, we could bring them up to about $9 million, which is a 10x improvement. Now, if you take a SaaS company, the multipliers for SaaS companies, instead of being 12.6, are in the 30 to 35 range. Okay. So let's say you have a SaaS company that's doing $2 million of annual recurring revenue. And when we do the optimization process, they're no longer 12.6, they're 30, let's say they're 30 to keep the math simple. So $2 million of revenue, a 30x multiplier. But here's where it gets really nice. The margin for an engineering company, 15 to 20% would be very commendable. Okay.
Right.
The margins for a SaaS company, we're looking at higher than 80%. So now if you have a SaaS company, or better still, if in your engineering company, you have a software product that you have created to support your business, but you could then offer that as a SaaS service to other engineering companies, here's where it gets very sexy. Let's say you took that product, it was a cost center to you, you're not making any revenue from it, but you can position it as a SaaS product for other companies to use. So let's say that you only got $1 million worth of revenue from that SaaS product. Your margin is going to be better than 80%, or at least it should be. So 80% margin on $1 million product is $800,000. With a 30x multiplier, that is $24 million of business value just from that SaaS product. And if you remember, when we went through the evaluation exercise for the whole engineering company, after all the internal optimization, we got to about $10 million worth of value. But if we have a software product that we can then offer to the marketplace as a SaaS platform, we can actually triple the value of the business. So the business itself was worth $9 million. Taking out the software tool, turn it into a SaaS product, and having that as a separate offering gives us an extra $24 million worth of value. That's how powerful, and that's one of the strategies. When you look at, and as I said, we teach that you should be over the business, looking in at not the business as a single entity, but as a series of cost and profit centers all working together. And then when you work over the business, how can I turn a cost center to a profit center, and how can I maximize the value of every one of these single elements in the business? And doing a SaaS spin-off is a hugely profitable way of using that strategy.
Perfect. That makes, I'm sure a lot of people will see sense in that and look towards, engaging with you. Now, the last question that I have, David, is how do you start from scratch, from a company point of from a company's point of view, they would want to understand, how do we set up in Texas? How do they start? What do you do? How do they begin? Where do they begin?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to know the land, to understand what you're doing. I mean, it doesn't cost much. I mean, the lawyers that I use, they can set up a foreign-owned corporation for less than $3,000. So it's not expensive to create the legal entity. What's more important is you do the groundwork about, know what business you want to be in, know what you want to deliver. And then, I'm here and I've got a whole team of people that can help them. One of the things that you and I talked about was possibly putting on an investors tour to, take people around Texas and show them the major cities, show them the opportunities, so they understand the opportunity, and then they can decide whether they want to invest, and then look at businesses to buy and start that process. So those are all options for people who are looking at investing in Texas that that can be arranged for them.
Okay. And how do they contact you, just for the sake of the Indian audience?
The usual routine, my LinkedIn profile, I'm very active on LinkedIn, or the email, david@steampoweredconsulting, will always get to me. And I'll be happy to have a conversation with anybody that wants to talk.
Great, David. Great. I think you have explained it in such a nice detail and given a lot of information about not just Texas, but also about different sectors that could be hugely lucrative for a lot of people here. With this, it's a wrap on this edition of the KJ Masterclass. Thank you very much, David.